Elle for over 10 years. And I'm so excited that she's going to join us today. Elle's been at the forefront of everything in marketing as long as I can remember. She was at Salary.com, she was at Eloqua, she was at Lattice Engine, she was at Path Factory. Everywhere she goes, she blazes the trail. She's amazing. So she's going to be talking to us today about the well-rounded marketer and blending the disciplines of brand and demand. Everybody, give it up for Elle Wolf.
I don't have any slides. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Cool. I'm super self-conscious about this note card I'm holding. I feel really weird that I'm holding a note card, but full disclosure, I'm currently unemployed. My last day at Path Factory was about 3 weeks ago, so I am an unemployed marketer, and your brain really starts to atrophy when you're not working, so I wasn't confident I could get up here without a note card. I'm holding a note card. Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to talk today about the intersection of brand and demand. I thought I'd first talk about a little bit of my career history, which Jeff just kind of hit on. So I've spent most of my career working in demand gen roles. I was very lucky back in around 2009 to join Eloqua during the heyday of marketing automation. And I was part of a world-class demand gen team where I learned a ton. After that, I left Eloqua after the acquisition, and I followed the former CMO, Brian Carden, who I think spoke here today or is going to speak, to Lattice Engines in the predictive analytics space. And I had a really cool opportunity there to build a demand gen function from the ground up, hire a great team, build a tech stack, build all the process around demand, and it was a great experience. I was there for 2 years and did lots of really fun things. And then I met the co-founders of a very, very early stage startup, a very scrappy startup called Lookbook HQ. And they were the first people to take a shot on me to run marketing. They believed that I could run all of marketing. And they did hire me for my background in demand gen because that was sort of the most important thing they were trying to solve for at that time. And so I joined Lookbook HQ, which is now Path Factory, a little over 4 years ago, to help them sort of move from a fully outbound model to much more of an inbound model. I think I've been drawn to demand gen because it's this really beautiful sort of place that blends right and left brain thinking. I tend to think of myself as more of a traditional marketer. I got my start in traditional marketing. I did product marketing. I did Marcom. I really like the arts and crafts side of marketing. I like creative. I like the psychology of buying. I like trying to figure out how to move a buyer through a journey. That stuff really appeals to me. My first experience with demand gen when I worked at Eloqua got me really comfortable with the left brain side of marketing, marrying all of that great stuff with the process, the metrics, having to be accountable and responsible for how those programs were working. And so I really loved, being in demand gen because I think it marries two things that I like and that I think I'm pretty good at. The other hallmark of my career, in addition to having spent a long time in demand gen, is that, in case you didn't pick up on it, I have been in MarTech for a long time. I've spent the better part of 10 years working in marketing technology companies. In fact, Eloqua, Path Factory, and Lattice Engines all basically sold to the same audience, and that's the people in this audience right here. Working in MarTech is a bit of a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, I've been marketing to myself for the past 10 years, so I didn't have to go through all this work to understand the persona. I can very easily put myself in the shoes of the buyer, and that takes a little bit of the work out of it. And I also think marketers are kind of voyeuristic when it comes to marketing. They like marketing. They're students of marketing, right? So they pay attention. You have this audience that's kind of always wanting to see what's coming next. So those are sort of the plus sides of working in MarTech. While marketers may be students of marketing, they also tend to be big critics of marketing. And if I could show you the emails I have received over the years for the things I did that they didn't like, they're the first people to find a mistake or an error or an issue with the program you just ran. They know when they got that email twice. They're going to call you out on all that stuff. But actually, the biggest challenge in working in MarTech, and I'm sure everybody knows this, it's an unbelievably noisy place to be. If you watched Scott Brinker talk a little while ago, everyone's seen the MarTech landscape. There's more B2B marketing technology right now than there ever has been before. And that means as a vendor, it's very, very hard to stand out and differentiate. And as a demand gen marketer, I never really thought that was my problem. As I said, about 4 years ago, I joined this early stage company called Lookbook HQ, and for the first 2 years, I really focused on demand gen. Again, everything they were generating for pipeline and revenue was brute force, outbound cold calling, and I was hired to basically build a scalable, repeatable model for sourcing revenue, and that's primarily what I did. About 18 months ago, I got a very unique opportunity as a demand gen-centric marketer to rebrand the company. And I had this crisis of confidence, like, I don't know anything about branding. I'm not a brand marketer, I'm a demand marketer. It was the first time that I had to really, really think about brand. And it made me realize that in my career in demand gen, I had kind of taken branding for granted. Brand is really important. And as I said, in MarTech, it's even more important because it is such a noisy space. I'm sure everyone in this room gets tons of prospecting emails and phone calls. I've gotten really good at knowing when someone is masking their area code, and I have stopped answering those phone calls like in the dentist's office because it's someone trying to sell me software. Everyone will get 1 million follow-up campaigns after this event, right? And so for all of the vendors here, brand is super important. Without a really great sharp point of view, brand point of view, it's hard to differentiate all of these different companies. And so, when the opportunity came around to rebrand PathFactory or Lookbook HQ, I had to think a lot about that. When you look around B2B, sometimes it's not the best source of inspiration for great brands. I think there are some that do it really well, but chances are when you think of a B2B brand or a brand that you love, it's a B2C brand. I've always been very loyal to Subaru. I love Subaru's branding. I love the way that they talk about this car that's going to grow with you throughout your life. And I watch those ads with the kids who start out in kindergarten and then they're graduating from high school and I'm crying and I just think I'm always going to drive a Subaru. And so those are the examples that come from B2C because they think a lot about that. They want you to really associate them with something very specific. They want to conjure a feeling or an emotion. They want you to be tied to that brand in a fundamental way. And in B2B, I think we don't think about that as much. And so, there are really good B2B brands, and I'll take MarTech as an example because we're here talking about MarTech. Of course, the first example I'll make is Drift. And I think that everyone in this room, if I said, what do you think of when you think of Drift, you'd say conversational marketing. That's incredibly deliberate on the part of Drift. They worked really hard to get you to think about that. They didn't just sort of phone it in and hope that it would work. They spent a lot of time and energy trying to create a category. And what they've done is made conversational marketing the punchline to everything they do. They're incredibly consistent. They've invested in their brand. HubSpot was the same way. When you think about HubSpot, you think about inbound marketing. Before they ever started marketing software, they were marketing that category and that idea. They were writing a book about it. And I just don't think enough B2B brands think about that. I think what the best B2B brands do when it comes to branding is they stand for something really specifically. And that's, when we started to rebrand the company at PathFactory, I think the easiest way to think about it is, what do you want to be known for? If somebody says PathFactory, what do they say? What is it that they think you do? And it's funny how few companies really think about that. I can tell you what a lot of different B2B companies, what I think they do, but not necessarily what they stand for. One thing that started to become, really clear to me as we rebranded the company was that brand had always been my responsibility, and I just hadn't really thought about it. Demand gen teams are at the intersection of everywhere the buyer is. They touch them at every stage of the journey, and they have this unique opportunity to reinforce what the brand is all about. One of the things that we did and what we had to get comfortable with was assuming that as a demand gen team, not every single thing we did needed to be about manufacturing demand. I think the last presentation talked about that a little bit. I think we all are ambassadors of brand. And so, we started to integrate into our demand programs touches that were softer, that didn't have a direct conversion, oriented goal. We were comfortable with, this campaign is really just about educating someone, about trying to get them excited about our point of view, about inspiring them to do something different. It isn't always about throwing a form in their face and getting them to convert. And when you start to orient yourself that way and you start to incorporate some of these softer elements of sort of brand touches into your demand marketing, it's a rising tide. When your buyer starts to really understand what you're all about, what you stand for, things get a lot easier. When we started to really invest in the brand, and I didn't have buckets of money to do this. This wasn't I wasn't, running big events or putting billboards up on the highway. It was just, incorporating more of that sort of soft touch into our marketing, running more programs that were education-oriented versus conversion-oriented. When we did that, we suddenly saw that we'd get on a first call with someone, and they kind of knew what we did already because we had really worked hard to educate them. In really thinking about the brand and putting the brand front and center, we were able to cultivate buyers who I think were much more informed and educated and excited about what we were doing. I think sometimes when you're down in the trenches doing the day-to-day business of manufacturing demand, of running campaigns and programs and getting people to respond and raise their hand and moving them through the funnel and educating them across this journey, it can be easy to lose sight of what is your brand all about? What do you want that buyer to know? What do you want them to take away? It can't just be, I want them to download the ebook. I want them to watch the webinar. I think that if you start to put brand at the front of your demand gen efforts, you start to see much better results in terms of conversion, in terms of quality, and in terms of velocity. And it's just a different mindset. You know, as I said at the beginning, I think that as a demand gen marketer, I sort of took brand for granted. I mean, I was lucky to work at a company like Eloqua, where I think they did some good work to establish a brand point of view. But, you know, it really is the job of everybody in marketing to be thinking about the brand. I think one of the things that's tough in B2B is often no one owns brand, right? Or everyone owns brand, and therefore no one owns brand. We did a lot of work and spent a lot of time just iterating on our point of view and that message that we wanted to consistently drive home. And we drove it home across every single channel we could think of. It became our true north, and it became the punchline for everything that we did. And in doing that, I think people started to really get it. When I joined that company a little over 4 years ago, every time someone would say, oh, Lookbook HQ, what do you guys do? It was like, do you have an hour? Like, the earth was a molten mess, let me start there, and you'd have to like build from there. And it was really hard, right? As we got better and more crisp and more sharp with that point of view message, with that brand promise, with all of those ideas we wanted people to remember about us, it got much easier. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to sell it so hard. People kind of got it. I think particularly in MarTech, there's a blur of sameness out there. No offense to any of the vendors. I know everybody's working really hard, but I think there's less focus on brand than there could be. And I think when you start to invest in that and you start to get sharp, it can really help. So I'm going to look at my card, make sure I hit all my points. You know, as I said at the beginning, I am currently an out-of-work marketer. So if you know anyone who's looking for a great head of marketing, I'm available, free agent. But I will say, you know, the experience that I've had over the past 4 years took me very far outside my comfort zone, first of all. And I think that was important for me as a demand marketer to suddenly own something that was bigger and truly important to the company and in driving growth, because brand is a big driver of growth. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But I do think that, you know, those experiences helped me to become such a much more well-rounded marketer. And it's not to say that I wasn't, you know, well-rounded. I have touched various aspects of marketing throughout my career. But really understanding the power and the importance of brand and what it can do to help you grow and to help you actually build a demand gen function that performs at an incredibly high level has really helped me, I think about what I want to do next. And it makes me feel really confident that I will be able to find the next great opportunity, because I think I am now a much more well-rounded marketer than I ever was before. So thank you very much.